Good morning and welcome to the SEC Daily. I'm your host, Chris Lee, joined by Gavin Schoenwald, former Vanderbilt player, who is with us most days of the week. We're going to get into a lot of stuff today. We'll get into college football playoff odds. We'll get into quarterback play. We'll get into Auburn and Georgia just a little bit. That one, the line has come down on that one, which piqued my curiosity a little bit. But we'll touch on all those things. But Gavin, thanks for joining us. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, absolutely. Good day today, Tuesday. Had a really good conversation in here yesterday as well. And so looking to build on this momentum, Chris.
Yeah. Well, let's talk. We'll give everybody a second to get in here. Again, if you're just joining us, we're going to talk about college football playoff odds. There's some very interesting stuff out there. Again, quarterback play will be a topic. I was looking at ESPN's quarterback ratings, which is more than just passer ratings, which I've always never understood why we don't take into account the other things quarterbacks do or don't do. I think there's a little bit of correlation there between that and some of the poor play we have seen. We can blame offensive lines too. We'll probably hit on some other matchups this week in the SEC. Again, that Auburn-Georgia game will be interesting. We've got Missouri coming to town. By the way, we'll have Gerard Hamilton, powermizzou.com, coming on to join us Thursday to talk about that. We'll have Trey Wallace as normal on Friday to talk about the SEC slate. Again, this is going to be the first weekend of SEC on SEC games. We are very excited about that. And these are really some intriguing matchups this week. Yeah. And I mean, I think there is something of interest in every game. I find LSU Ole Miss to kind of be fascinating because there's a big discrepancy between what the lines makers think and what some of the computers think. And let me give you an example on that one, Gavin. I don't know what to make of this. Odds makers have LSU as a 3-point favorite in this. ESPN's FPI, SP Plus both have Ole Miss as a field goal favorite. Jeff Sagarin's got Ole Miss as a 6-point favorite. That factors in for home field. But basically what FPI and SP Plus are both saying is that that's a pick'em game on a neutral field and then give Ole Miss the advantage for home field. Sagarin's saying Ole Miss is a field goal better and then throwing another field goal. That's very interesting. I'm looking at the computers. We have talked about LSU as a national title contender, potentially playoff contender. We'll get into odds in just a minute. But it's very interesting to me. The computers have not been big on LSU so far.
No, they haven't. And I think that's a maybe an effect of them getting spooked week one versus LSU or versus Florida State. I mean, I just can't tell you. I haven't seen an LSU team get physically beat like that in a long time. And so I'm not sure if that's, them still having some memories of that or whatnot. But yeah, overall, this slate this weekend is really nice. I love the game at Jerry's World between A&M and Arkansas. Florida, Kentucky, what a kind of little rivalry that's turned into. I think that's going to get chippy. Yeah. You look at Georgia and Auburn. Obviously, Georgia has won every game they've played, but they've not nearly looked at the quality of team they looked last year. Now they go on the road in the SEC. I don't care if that's to Tuscaloosa or to Auburn or to LSU at night. That's always a tough task. Then you look at LSU, Mississippi, what we're touching on right now. It's kind of a funky deal because we thought we knew who Ole Miss was, and then they went and laid an egg in Tuscaloosa with a golden opportunity. LSU started off the worst way possible and then has rebounded and played well since. So, this is a really interesting game for both teams, LSU and Ole Miss, for Kiffin and Brian Kelly. As you know, like Vegas always wins. There's a reason that those sports books and casinos exist. At the same time, when you see confusing odds and differing from across everybody else, it truly is a little bit of a toss-up. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out.
And I think some of that can be attributed to the fact that most of these teams just have had at least a couple of cupcakes so far. Some of them 3 or 4. But you mentioned Kentucky, Florida. Did you get a chance to hear Bob Stoops' comment in his press conference on Monday?
I did. Mark Stoops. But yes,
Bob. Excuse me, Mark. Thank you. Yeah,
I did, and good on him. I can always appreciate when coaches want to share some personality and laugh with the reporters and stuff. Chris, you've been in those press conferences before, and everyone feels like they need to be uptight and whatnot. Man, just talk to us in a little bit, and I feel like it humanizes them a little bit more. But yeah, I have no doubt that Kentucky fans will be be cranking PBRs and Coors Lights in the parking lot about 8 a.m. So,
well, neither does Mark Stoops. If you didn't
yeah.
hear this, he was asked about Kentucky getting up for the game on that 11 o'clock kickoff, which I want to get your opinion on that in just a minute as a former player. That a lot of times can be challenging for a lot of people. For players, it kind of throws off your body clock maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
And he was asked about that. He said, "I have great confidence in the people of Kentucky that can get up very early and pound some beers. Why would you disrespect this great state and the great people of it?" I thought that was great.
That is funny. That is funny.
So,
Yeah. I have no doubt that they'll be able to wake up and let it roll early in the morning. But yeah, those 11 a.m. kicks, man. So the SEC, is, I'm sure everyone watching knows, releases what time the games are going to be about 2 weeks in advance, right? And so you're looking ahead at what time those games are at, further in the schedule. And when you see that 11 a.m. game, you're always like, oh gosh. At the same time, it gives you more time to see your family after the game, see people who are coming to see you. So there are pros and cons. This is really interesting, though. I saw this tweet from Brandon Zimmerman earlier today. Past 11 years, the teams with the most 11 a.m. kickoffs, you would think that the better teams play at the 2:30 slot or the 3:30 on CBS or the 7 p.m. The teams with the most 11 a.m. kicks, and I'm talking Central Time here, in the past 11 years, Georgia leads the conference with 39, Florida in second with 38, South Carolina with 37, Mizzou 36, and Vandy 34. LSU has the least with 11. And so really interesting there. I would love to know what those meetings are in terms of where they're placing these games in the slots with the SEC network and whatnot. But yeah, it definitely caught me by surprise to see teams like, Georgia and LSU at the top of that list, because those 11 a.m. games, man, you don't want them. You don't want them. You'd rather have the whole day to prepare and kind of get your body ready for an afternoon or night game.
What was your favorite time to start?
Man, I loved the 2:30, 3:30 midday kick. I loved it, because if you're playing at 11 a.m., you got to remember you're getting up at 5:45, 6, because there's all, I know the fans roll up, tailgate, and but you got to have, as a player, you have pregame meal, you have meetings, you have walkthroughs, you have to get to the stadium 3 hours early. So like that, your day starts significantly earlier with an 11 a.m. kick.
Yeah.
Sometimes on the road, I don't mind playing at 11 a.m. because you can get back quicker. If you're playing a night game on the road, sometimes you don't get back till 2, 3, 3:30 in the morning. So for me, I loved like that midday kick. Especially as you get later into the fall, weather's nice. It's sunny to the start, darker towards the end of the game. That was definitely my favorite start time. But if you're playing on the road, I don't think you mind that 11 a.m. kick, because you do get back home not in the middle of the night.
What time did you get out of bed for the 11 a.m. kick at home?
I believe it was 5:45. So it's early.
No wonder. And on the road, what's it look like?
It depends. It depends on what time the kick's at. If it's at
for an 11,
it's probably about 6:15, because especially if it's an 11 a.m. kick, they'll be really strategic with getting a hotel that's near the stadium. I know we try to stay out of town a little bit to get away from everything, but every second, every minute, especially of sleep, I think that's a little more intentional with players' sleep now and whatnot, and so yeah, you're actually up earlier at home, because these coaches, man, they're super they got their ways, and so it's we're up, we're moving, we're eating, we're doing this. And if you're not in bed by 10:30, 10 o'clock on a Friday night, you're asking these 18 to 22-year-old kids to go to sleep at 10 o'clock. I understand, college football, but like you wake up tired for an 11 a.m. game, man. You do. I hate those 11 a.m. kicks. I hate them.
Well, and I bet those are particularly brutal when the time, like right now, hey, 6 o'clock, it's still dark outside in Central Time Zone. I mean, a couple months ago wasn't that way. When it's November and it's pitch black outside and it's 30 degrees, I bet that's even tougher at that point.
Yeah. Especially when you're walking out of the hotel in your suit to go to the stadium, and it's 8:15 for an 11 a.m. kick, and it's like literally freezing. Yeah. And the sun hasn't even came up yet to warm it up. I'm talking these deeper later games, November-ish. But like, yeah, that's and so yeah, that whole stat that I just read off with, it really surprised me, with Georgia and LSU, two of the better teams in this league, at the top of that list in the past 10 years. I'm not really sure what that goes into, and yeah, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in those meetings.
Yeah, kickoff times have been set 2 weeks out. The big talk was Missouri, LSU. That's a game that people have circled for a bit. That is an
Yeah,
11 o'clock kickoff in Columbia. ESPN game. At the same time, Mississippi State in the only out-of-conference matchup hosting Western Michigan, 11 on the SEC Network, 2:30 Alabama and A&M on the CBS game, of course. Then you've got Vandy, Florida at 3. These times all Central, Kentucky, Georgia at 6, and Arkansas, Ole Miss at 6:30. So that's your TV schedule. But I want to go. We said we were going to get into playoff odds,
sure.
and I think these are really tough to do right now. Again, the SEC has underwhelmed so far. Your quality on quality games have not been many. Again, it's hard to know how to make an assessment when it's Georgia, UAB, and Tennessee Martin, and all the wonderful football we have seen a couple weeks in. But
Sure.
betting odds right now, this is interesting. There's a pretty decent split between what odds makers have and what ESPN's FPI has. And according to I think this is, what am I looking at? DraftKings, Georgia at plus 220. I can't tell. It says national championship game winner. Okay, I thought that was playoff odds. This got Georgia at plus 220. That can't be right. Michigan plus 500, Ohio State plus 800, Texas plus 800, Florida State plus 800. Drop off from there to Penn State plus 1,400. So that is who the odds makers are seeing as the real contenders right now. By the way, Alabama and LSU both tied at plus 4,000. Okay,
Wow.
let me make the playoffs, and that's the one. I apologize. I thought that's the one we had this on.
No, you're good. I'm looking at it too, Chris. I got MGM and FanDuel up here, which is two of the more popular sports books. And what I see is the same thing. I see chunks. I see Georgia and Michigan, and then I see a drop off. Georgia's at 225, Michigan at 400. The next closest team is Ohio State, and that's 900. And that's right up there with Ohio State, Texas, Florida State, right around the same thing. And then I see another chunk, and then that is USC, Penn State, and Washington at 1,600 and 2,000. So there's kind of tiers, if you will, as you can look here in these betting odd favorites. If I look at this list overall, and I think of maybe a team that has, if I was a betting man, a tremendous value pick here. I see maybe Florida State at 900. We all thought that they were the greatest thing in the world. Now they stumbled against Boston College, but I mean, they have two of probably the best wins in the country so far in the opening game and LSU when they thumped them, and then went into a desperate team in Clemson and found a way to win that game. And so, they've proven that they can win away from home, twice now. I guess that LSU game was in Florida, but a neutral site. And then, I don't want to totally count out, Nick Saban and the Tide yet. If they can find a way to win that 5,000 odd, man, that's large. I wonder, that's got to be the largest odds I've seen in Tuscaloosa in a long, long time. And so those are two maybe the most value picks I see there. But also too, man, those Pac-12 teams are making noise this year. And I got to give it up to my man Blake, man. He kind of called it out that these Pac-12 teams would be solid and would beat up on each other. And eventually they're all going to be playing each other and matching up, and one team's got to win and one team's got to lose. So it'll be interesting to see how these odds shake up as the season goes on.
Yeah, it would have been nice if they had sorted these in order, but right now Michigan at minus 115 on DraftKings, that it is DraftKings, the best odds to make the playoff. Followed by Florida State minus 150. Florida State now has gotten its two toughest games behind them, at least the ones we circled before the season, LSU and Clemson, and won both of those. So I would think that's fairly safe bet at this point.
And that's something that we talked about at the beginning of the year, Chris. When we talked at the beginning of the year about storylines, I said, man, with Florida State, because that was kind of similar to what we talked about yesterday with Tennessee. There was a lot of Kool-Aid, a lot of hype around Florida State this offseason, and rightfully so, with Jordan Travis and Norvell, and they're getting some momentum. Okay, I didn't know that this Keon Coleman guy was going to be the best receiver I've ever seen.
No kidding.
They had these other players as well, like that we said by week 4, we're going to find out. We're going to find out real quick with Florida State, because they open up with LSU and then they go on the road at Clemson. Not only did they physically dominate LSU on a national stage in front of everybody, but like I said, went into Clemson against a desperate team. They won both those games, man. I don't want to say they're on cruise control, because you can never be in college football, but they should win every single game on the rest of their schedule and find themselves in the playoffs.
Yeah, actually, Georgia is at minus 240. Again, this isn't sorted in order,
Wow.
so I'm having to so and I think kind of hard to argue with that, although we don't really know what Georgia is. We're going to get into that in Auburn in a little bit, because again, the line has dropped on that game. I can't tell you exactly why. Maybe there's some hope that Auburn's going to get healthier. That'll be a talking point later in the show. But I mean, Georgia's toughest games, man, the team's still ranked in the top. Well, they've got a lot, but they're all lower in the rankings teams. Auburn not ranked. Kentucky, I think, is ranked, but it's 20 to 25. Same with Florida. Ole Miss, I can't remember where Ole Miss fell this week, and then Tennessee, and then Missouri, which also broke into the top 25. So
Yeah.
a lot of ranked teams ahead for Georgia, but nobody that's top 10-ish at this point. So
yeah, and I remember at the beginning of the year looking, and when we were given our college football playoff predictions, I put Georgia in the 1 spot, but I clarified and said this is more so because their schedule is lenient than I believe that they're going to be a returning powerhouse that they've been. And that's kind of been the story so far with Georgia, Chris, is, they've not really played well. They've done enough to win. It's obvious they have talent all over the field. They have, a guy in Stetson Bennett who was just almost a little bit like a Brock Purdy story for college football, of, a guy that was counted out and a walk-on, and now he was a 2-time MVP of the national championship game. And that's a huge, huge shoes to fill. You can't have, I'm not saying Carson Beck is a game manager, but Stetson Bennett was the heartbeat of that team. And you lose that and some other playmakers as well on defense. And, you got to retool. And I have no doubt that by the time, we get rolling here and SEC play, that Kirby will have those guys rolling and whatnot. But man, we need to, I'm not fully confident in previous years that I've been in Georgia like I am, this weekend for them rolling into Jordan-Hare.
Man, this is wild. I'm looking at FPI. FPI has Ohio State as the best playoff odds, and this is the crazy part. Michigan, which is, I think, let's see, what is Michigan on DraftKings? It is minus 115. FPI, and again, you're seeing some weird stuff with computers so far. Michigan all the way down the list, the 11th best odds, 11.7% to make the playoffs. I don't believe that for a second.
Yeah.
I think what this is the computers, FPI loves Ohio State right now.
Yeah, they do.
And so it's taken Ohio State to win that game, and factoring that in, I'm sure. But it's crazy to look at the discrepancy. Here's another one I wouldn't have guessed. Oklahoma.
Yeah.
FPI's got Oklahoma number 2 in terms of playoff odds. Georgia all the way down to 4, 35.1%. Alabama 21.5%. LSU 5%. Wonder what that'd be if that Florida State game had flipped. That's got a lot to do with it, I'm sure. Other SEC teams, Ole Miss still the 4th best playoff odds according to FPI, 4.1%. A&M 2.1%. Other SEC teams, Tennessee 0.4%, Florida 0.1%, as well as are Kentucky and Missouri.
Yeah, I'm not, and I obviously respect and I watch a lot of ESPN. I'm not as concerned with the football power index they got. That's some nerd back there crunching analytics and whatnot. And I'm looking at the bet stuff because that's where the money's going. The money makes the world go around. And so, I've seen stuff before of, you've seen. Chris. I feel like every year they come out with some post. It's like, Ole Miss had a 99.99% chance to win the game and they lost. Okay, well, like, who came up with that? Like, is that just some type of formula you guys had? But so I'm always looking at all the betting stuff, and I think why you're seeing all these numbers all over the place, Chris, compared to previous years, where you kind of have in previous years we've had those dominant just wagon teams, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Clemson, Ohio State, and kind of everybody else, to be honest with you. This year, it's wide open, man. It is wide open. And I don't know if that is, we said this before, but I don't know if that's a, testament to this portal now being here for about 2 or 3 years and teams being way deeper and talent across the board as NIL, where, people can leave and make money at whatever school instead of, being a backup at these power schools like Alabama and Georgia, man. That it's just way more wide open. Way more wide open. And because think about it. We used to go through these college football seasons and we would be so passionate for our team, hoping this would be the year that we would make the playoff. And every year it would be Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Georgia. Every year, every single year. That was the teams that ended up in but guess what? We still watch the game. We still watch the game and whatnot. But like this year, like there's a real possibility we may see 2, I don't want to say 3, but maybe 2 or possibly 3 teams that make their first college football playoff appearance. It's very possible. It is very possible this year. And so, I'm interested to see what that looks like. It's be exciting, amongst this time of a little bit of unknowns in college football. But I also think it makes every game just a little bit more important as well.
FPI is giving 12 teams an 11% or better chance to make the playoffs. That does not include Notre Dame, which, of course, that loss to Ohio State was probably going to be a killer. Doesn't include LSU, 5%, all those other SEC schools. Here's one, Utah, all the way down at 1.6%. Let me see who Utah's got left on the schedule. Of course, the Utes are unbeaten. Southern Cal, Oregon, Washington, that's the problem. It's got 3 top 10 teams on the schedule ahead. Mm-hmm. But that's one that, hey, let's go back to week 1 with Florida. Everybody was down on Florida because they didn't play well against Utah. And I know Utah was banged up, but hey, Utes have been looking pretty good so far.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, man, is like, I think that in that opening game, our SEC bias and ego may have gotten in the way a little bit, or Utah is a really good college football team. They won the Pac-12 in back-to-back years. They have an unbelievable offense coordinator. Andy Ludwig was my coordinator my freshman year at Vanderbilt. The way he's able to – I mean, that guy is a mad scientist of football. I mean, we would come in for our freshman lifts at 4:45, starting at 5 in the morning. He's already there with a plate of food, watching film. I mean, the guy is just a mad scientist of football. And then you pair it with Kyle Whittingham, who's been able to build that culture and what he's been able to do at Utah. They've been really strong. They've been really, really strong. And so I'm not totally out on Florida. I was doubtful to start the season, but man, what a way they've bounced back, especially in that Tennessee game. Oh, Chris, I think I lost you, man. Well, Chris got bounced, so I guess it's just me right here, but I appreciate y'all hanging out. But no, I want to return to what I was saying about Florida specifically, and especially Graham Mertz, because let's call it what it is. Graham Mertz came in from Wisconsin, and I think Billy Napier didn't really have anybody to, hey, welcome back, my man, welcome back.
Hey, my internet connection just completely went out for about.
No, you're good. You're good.
So
I was
my
fault. Down.
I don't know what happened there, but yeah,
you're good. You're good. And no, I was speaking of Florida, and I was talking about Graham Mertz specifically coming from Wisconsin. He wasn't anything stellar at Wisconsin either. He was a good, solid Big Ten quarterback, but let's call it what it is as well. Did we really expect him to come in and be this elite player in the conference? No. But one thing he does do well is he's incredibly efficient. He's had every single game. He's passed for over 70% completion percentage. Doesn't turn the ball over. He's been incredibly efficient, and that's what Florida needs. They have athletes all over the field. Give them the ball. Let them, make the plays for you. As a quarterback, you can really try to take over the game and make these tough throws. But man, when you got athletes on the field like Florida does, man, just get them the ball and they'll make you look good. And I think Mertz has figured that out a little bit. And so, was I down on Florida after that Utah game? Absolutely. I think a lot of us were. But, I think as the season rolls on, you've kind of given Utah their flowers a bit, and also understood that, Tennessee or Florida bounced back in a big way against Tennessee. And, what an opportunity this weekend as well in Lexington.
All right. That's a really good segue, because I wanted to talk quarterbacks next. I think as your quarterback goes, has a lot to determine probably how you feel about your favorite team right now. We're going to get into that. I'm going to pull up some stats. We're also going to look at, what was it, Yahoo's quarterback power ratings in the SEC. Is that what you've got pulled up?
Yep. That's what I got.
Okay. Hold that thought a minute. A quick shout. Speaking of the Gators, our guys at CHOMPS have been giving us good stuff. Needed a little pick-me-up right before the podcast today. Need a little protein. We all need a little protein before we come in here. And so got some of that at CHOMPS with one of the beef sticks. Really good. The jalapeno, I think, is my favorite so far. But you can get the variety pack and try them all for yourself. It is a minority and family-owned business. CHOMPS makes healthy snacks. 9 flavors. So, again, something for everybody. If you're trying CHOMPS for the first time, the trial pack is for you. 6 different flavors, all 3 proteins to try and love for yourself. Makes for a perfect halftime snack during your favorite game, or maybe when your internet goes out. I should have gone and pulled out a CHOMPS stick. Maybe I should feed my internet CHOMPS. It needed a little protein then.
Yeah, for sure.
And by the way, thank you for the super chat for my internet fund, David. So yeah, I mean, 9 to 10 grams of protein, 60 to 100 calories, gluten-free, free of the top 9 allergens, 0 grams of sugar. So great stuff for your kids. CHOMPS is one of the sponsors of our show. We've got a promo code where you can get 15% off. I think we'll put that in the show notes when we're done. But go to CHOMPS and you can enter. I think the promo code is in the description and get 15% off your order. Okay, I want to go through the SEC quarterback ratings. I'm looking at ESPN's. It does a total QBR rating, which also considers taking sacks, running ability, whether penalties are charged to you, because sometimes not getting the playoff in time. I guess I don't know how they charge penalties to the quarterback, but they've got a way here, and they've got different scores. And it really, one thing that stands out to me is I'm looking at ESPN's top 50. How few SEC guys are in here, Gavin? By my count, there's only 5.
Wow. Talk about a change,
there's a couple guys we've seen. Yeah, well, and look, your top quarterback in the SEC, according to ESPN's QBR, I don't think anybody would guess this one, but it's Connor Wegman at 4, right behind Michael Penix Jr. of Washington, who's going to get some Heisman love, Tyler Van Dyke of Miami, who had a phenomenal game against A&M a few weeks ago, J.J. McCarthy of Michigan. So you have to go all the way down to 12 to find Spencer Rattler, who I think he is a lot better than that. I think the thing that's killing him is they've got a sack component on this.
Yeah.
He's a minus 10.3.
Yeah.
Everybody else in the top 30, Shedeur Sanders has got a worse one than he's got. I don't know if they're considering just sacks or sacks that they feel like are on the quarterback. That seems unfair to Spencer Rattler. 14, you got Jackson Dart, and in between 13, Jaden Daniels. And you've got to go all the way down to, let's see, Carson Beck at 33, Brady Cook at 35. I think Brady Cook has been better than that.
Yeah.
And then that is it. I don't see any more SEC quarterbacks in here. Now, what I do see is a couple guys who've been in the league before. Let's see. You've got Bo Nix at Oregon checking in at 20, and you've got Haynes King now at Georgia Tech checking in at 36. But a lot of quarterbacks in here. They got a lot of preseason love, Gavin. I'm talking Joe Milton, Graham Mertz.
Yep.
No Alabama presence in there.
Yeah.
Who am I forgetting? No Devin Leary, who we thought might be potentially the best one in the league.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Will Rogers. My goodness, Will Rogers isn't in the top 50. Now, some of that may be on his coach, but it's not. I don't think this is at all what we would have expected to see if you'd said, hey, guys, four full weeks in, these guys are going to be missing from the national top 50 in quarterback rating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's just, I think it's been disappointing as for the conference. We've seen some really big, disappointing losses out of conference to some teams that historically these teams, these SEC teams should steamroll. At the same time, the quarterback position, there's a reason that it's so magnified. There's a reason everyone pays attention to it. It's because his play dictates the team so much. And a lot of times in offenses as well, sometimes more than others, especially I think with Ole Miss and Kiffin, I think with Heupel in Tennessee, where they put so much on the quarterback. When he's playing well, the offense is playing well. No, I'm with you, Chris. I think it's been overall disappointing, especially because, and I said this yesterday too, man. Like the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, is the biggest, baddest conference in college football. They got biggest stadiums, the most money, the most fans, all that kind of stuff. If they wanted to go get any quarterback in the country, they could. And I just don't really understand why that didn't happen this past offseason.
Oh, I disagree. A lot of them did. These guys just aren't showing out. Now, I think that some of this may be on offensive lines.
Mm-hmm.
And look, let me continue, and then I want to get into how Yahoo sees it, because those are humans versus computers. KJ Jefferson at 53. We have documented Arkansas's offensive line troubles for a couple of weeks now. You go down. Here's a former SEC quarterback, Luke Altmaier, now at Illinois. He's ranked 56th. Grayson McCall all the way down at 60, by the way. The quarterback who's been at Coastal Carolina since, I think, about the time you were born.
Yeah.
Joe Milton at Tennessee, 53. Peyton Thorne at Auburn, 65. I'm not sure how he's that high, to be honest with you. Then we go down a little further. Devin Leary all the way down at 83. That's a massive disappointment, I think. And speaking of disappointments, the guy that was throwing to you this time last year, AJ Swan at Vandy, 117, has just been a turnover machine so far.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I'm missing somebody in there somewhere, but if you want to talk about how disappointing the league has been so far, some of that starts with quarterback play. And again, I think a lot of that is influenced by offensive line, but it's interesting to see how ESPN's formula sizes these guys up.
Yeah, no, I think it's super interesting. I think the number one thing as a quarterback, the number one thing, I don't care who you're playing for, is you got to take care of the ball. You have to take care of the ball. The ball's in your hands every single play. If a blindside strip sack is one thing, but a blatant pick six, those just kill your entire team. That's one guy's mistake. Think about that for a second. You go through winter training, running stadiums, 6 a.m.s, team runs, spring ball, all the summer workouts, the mat drills on the field, and when the turf is bleeding through your cleats, and one guy makes a mistake at the quarterback. That's why everyone pays so much attention to it. It is the most magnified position in sports. And one guy's mistake, throwing a pick, a dumb pick, a pick six, or whatever it may be, can affect the entire team and all the work that you put in the entire offseason. So, that's why Devin Leary is so low on this list. Dude's thrown 5 interceptions so far. We thought he may be the guy that comes in and as we knew that this, SEC quarterback cupboard was a little more bare with Levis and Hendon Hooker and Anthony Richardson and Stetson Bennett and all those guys gone. He may be the one that can come in and kind of step into the elite quarterback tier. That hasn't been the case yet because he's turned the ball over so much. Chris, you and I saw him do it, throw a blatant 1, almost 2, almost 3 this past weekend at Vanderbilt. You got to take care of the ball. And I understand a blindside strip sack is one thing, but a blatant pick is just an absolute drive killer for sure, but just a team killer as well. So the reason you're seeing those guys so low on the list, Swan, Leary, some others, I'm surprised Thorne is that high for sure, is because they're not taking care of the ball. Look at Brady Cook. Brady Cook has not turned the ball over yet this year. He's not thrown an interception yet. He has 10 total touchdowns and no interceptions. That's a huge reason why Missouri started the way they have, is because don't get me wrong, he hasn't been outstanding. He's not,
Oh, I disagree. I think.
Let me say this. I'm saying talent-wise.
Yeah.
He's not going to be, a top 2 round pick in the draft. That's what I'm saying. But what he has been is outstanding in taking care of the football and being efficient for his team and getting the ball to those playmakers such as Luther Burden and other guys as well. And that's long-winded here, so apologize. But that's what I was trying to say a little bit earlier, Chris, was, I feel like there's 2 approaches to the game as a quarterback. You can go in there, and what we saw a lot with Levis last year is trying to make the big throw, fit it into small spaces, trying to make the big throw over the top. Or the other approach is Just take what the defense gives you. Let the game come to you and get the ball to your players in space. And that's exactly what Brady Cook's done this year. And that's why he's off to a hot start and why Missouri has a chance to be 5-0.
All right, pull up your Yahoo Power Rankings of
Yep.
SEC quarterbacks. I want to hear how, and I have not seen this yet, so I'm very curious. I'll just react as you give them to me one by one.
Sure. All right, let's start at 14 and let's go to 1. Let's start at 14. 14, we got Peyton Thorne. Peyton Thorne's coming off a tough experience in College Station where he was 6 of 12 for 44 yards. And I don't care who you're playing, that's not going to get it done. And really, I don't care if you're at home or on the road in College Station, whatever it is. Chris, what do you think about Peyton Thorne, and is Robbie Ashford maybe a threat to kind of take him over the rest of the year?
Well, look, we had the stat that Blaine threw out there the other day. Auburn has not had a 100-yard passer in its last 5 games. I can't remember if it was against FCS or FBS teams.
Wow.
You just can't win that way.
Wow.
No, the Thorne, I mean, I don't really understand this because, look, 2 years ago, Peyton Thorne threw for 3,240 yards, 27 touchdowns, 10 picks. I don't know why he has gone backwards with his career path. I mean, and Hugh Freeze, if anybody has been good at developing quarterbacks, it's Hugh Freeze. So I don't know. Maybe it's just a bad fit for the offensive system. I don't know what the deal is. I'm not the guy to diagnose those things, but it's been kind of astonishing. Now, he's thrown 3 picks, and the guy that I thought was going to be 14th was A.J. Swan at Vandy, who has thrown now what?
Well, that's
7 picks and also lost a fumble or 2.
Yeah, let's just keep rolling. So Swan's at 13. He's thrown for 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns, but it's just what I said earlier. He's thrown 7 interceptions as well, and I believe 3 of those have been direct points to the defense in pick 6 form. And so that's just, absolutely kills you. 12, this was surprising, honestly, because I think this kid is uber talented, was Connor Wegman. 12 is Connor Wegman.
Interesting.
And, he's thrown for almost 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He's also rushed for 2 touchdowns. At the same time, if he can't go next week and Max Johnson plays really well, is that something they make a change? I would predict no. But I do think that Max Johnson is as good as any backup quarterback in this league, and what a golden opportunity for him to step into the light.
How do you have Connor Wegman at 12?
I'm not sure.
I mean, like I said, he is the highest rated guy in ESPN's quarterback rating in the SEC. He's 4th nationally, 82 of 119, 979, 8.2 per attempt, 8 touchdowns, 2 picks. I've not watched him play as much as Blaine has. Blaine has raved about him.
I've seen him play.
He was so good. He was so good last year. Didn't throw a pick.
Yeah, that's
a big miss on Yahoo's part. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I hear you, and I think I'm with you too, because I watched him a lot at the end of last year. And you throw a true freshman into a situation like that where the sky looks like it's falling in College Station at the end of last year, and he went in there and played really, really well. At the same time, and this is as serious as it gets. Jimbo and A&M are a desperate team. I mean, any loss they suffer in the near future is going to be magnified times 10, maybe more than any other school in this conference, just because of what the whole narrative of what's happened there. And so does he, desperate times calls for desperate measures. Seriously, Chris, what happens if Max Johnson goes out and throws for 300 yards and 3-4 touchdowns this weekend, and then Wegman's healthy the next week?
They're going to have quarterback controversy.
They're going to have quarterback controversy. And I don't care how good Wegman's been, because, man, he has been good. He has. But if it's about who gives yourself the best chance to win in this conference, it truly is. All right, let's move on. Number 11 is Graham Mertz at Florida. He's thrown for 950 yards and 4 touchdowns. He does have 1 interception. I believe I said earlier he had 0, but he has had 1 interception. But what I said earlier as well, he's been unbelievably efficient. He's not thrown for under 70% in a game so far. He's given the ball to all his playmakers, let him play. Again, I hate using the term game manager because I think it's a little bit of an insult, but that's kind of what you have to do at Florida right now when you've got these players all over the field. And look, he's not a first 2-3 round NFL talent. No, he's not. But the guys he can get the ball in his hands to at Florida can definitely give him a chance to win. And a lot of games they're playing moving forward.
Okay, I got a question for you.
Yep.
Guys completed 78% of his passes, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. Again, Brady Cook is I was going to say he's kind of that Brady Cook family of does what you ask him to do, although
That's
I
fair.
think Cook's got some stats the last 2 weeks that would argue otherwise.
Yep.
And we'll get to him when he shows up. But no, I think with some of the issues you've seen at quarterbacks other places, and again, some of that was playing Utah where their offensive system around him wasn't great.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That seems too low.
Yeah, a little bit. I would think so. Let's move. All right, we're getting to the top 10. Number 10 is Jalen Milroe at Alabama. I'm a little surprised to see him not a little closer towards the not the one spot, but closer in that direction. He's thrown for 670 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3 picks, has ran for 120 and 2 touchdowns. Look, he's only played in 3 of their 4 games. Obviously, as we all know, he sat out in the USF games, and he wasn't spectacular against Ole Miss by any means. But man, I keep going back to that play where he throws the touchdown over the top to that freshman, where he just gets absolutely smoked as he throws the ball. He's laying on the turf. The training staff comes out to him, and he stands up and gives a fist bump. Man, that shows me energy, and that shows me leadership. And I assume that he's going to be the guy moving forward. I think that they were done with the quarterback carousel. You got to stick with one guy. I'm surprised that even happened at the University of Alabama, of all places, to be honest with you, Chris. And they don't just pick one guy to roll with it. And so, I expect Milroe just to climb in these rankings as the season goes on, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I can't rank him any higher than this right now, though.
Yeah.
And some of this is South Florida when he didn't play. But Alabama, if I've got my number correct, Alabama's averaging what, 5.7 yards a play? That's not good.
It's not their standard.
And again, some of that was South Florida when he wasn't in there. But I can't go how you have Jalen Milroe ahead of Graham Mertz at this point, or Connor Wegman. That's silly.
Yeah, I hear you. I like this, Chris. Come on, get spicy, man. Give me some of your opinions here. I like this. Usually you're just hosting the show. I kind of like
my internet's getting spicy again. So
right,
yeah,
that's fine.
Apologies if you're seeing it on your end.
That's fine. Number 9, if you've had trouble with this list so far, I can't wait to see you here. Number 9 is Jackson Dart. And let me say this: I don't think he's at this place.
No,
without the performance of last weekend. I can't tell you. And we sat here with your buddy from Ole Miss and talked about how monumental this was for not only Lane Kiffin, but Ole Miss's program as a whole. And Dart wasn't great. He was good, not great. And he can sling it, he can run it, and do all that kind of stuff. But it just seems that they're a little bit out of sync, maybe in these bigger games that we've talked about yesterday with. Lane Kiffin not being able to beat 9+ win teams at the end of the year. And so, yeah, I am a little surprised to see Dart where he is. But I don't think that the game last week did him any favors either.
That's absurd. I mean, what did somebody just take these names and draw them out of a hat in a random order? I don't get this. I mean, okay, Jackson Dart was not great against Alabama, biggest game of the year. I get it, but we've talked about some of the cream puffs these teams have played.
Yeah, that's fair.
He was pretty good in their other games, and that included a road trip to Tulane. That included a Georgia Tech team that I think is a little better than people thought. No, I'm not buying Jackson Dart that low. That's silly.
Yeah. Well, before I continue, let me state that these are not my rankings. These are Yahoo Sports, and so I'm
I like how you distance yourself.
I'm just saying, if we're going to disagree with each one, I don't want the comments to come from my neck. So I just want to put that out there. 8, we got Will Rogers at Mississippi State. I think we can all agree that he has not been nearly as good as he was last year and the years before. Is that because Mike Leach is gone? I think it definitely has a factor and something to do with it for sure. I think those guys, we talk about quarterbacks and head coaches being in sync. I think maybe more than ever, he was the perfect guy for his system. He's thrown for about 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 1 interception. But like I said, it kind of feels like that he's a player who's not in his perfect system anymore.
I feel like, and I don't know what the criteria are. Is that based on just your performance this season? I think that Will Rogers is one that you sort of, if you're going to put him at a spot and there's some leverage, say you decide he's between 5 and 10 or wherever you decide, if he's in a range, I think you've got to give him a little bump up towards the top range just because of history. And again, I don't think that what you've seen with Will Rogers is on Will Rogers. I think it's on them screwing with their system and
I would agree.
putting him into doing things he's not used to doing. I mean, when they let loose with Will Rogers last week, I don't know if you got a chance to watch South Carolina, Mississippi State.
Yeah, I did.
He was
He let it rip.
flinging it down the field for some big plays.
Yeah, he was.
So,
he was. But I also think, Chris, before that game, he was very average, if that, to be honest with you. But I do agree with you. I think he's uber talented. We've seen it. I mean, I have no question about him as a player. He's done it for years and years on end. To me, it just looks like he's out of sync with this new system, and sadly, it wasn't by choice. And rest in peace to the Pirate Mike Leach. But man, yeah, it just seems like he's maybe not as in sync as he was when Leach was calling his plays. All right, moving to number 7, a guy I think this is a tough one too because he's turned the ball over, is Devin Leary at Kentucky. We spoke about this earlier. He's thrown for 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And Chris, you and I saw it. It could have been 3+ against Vandy last week.
Yeah.
And almost a pick 6. And so, I think the truth is, and this is what Yahoo Sports says too, is, they've kind of played these, what'd you call them? These little puff cake games. Is that what you called them, Chris? What'd you call those games? I
called them cupcakes. Somehow it became pupcakes in the comments. I don't know if that's because my internet sucks today.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, these cupcake games, they've won, but honestly, they didn't look outstanding in those games either, and they've kind of had to pull away in the second half. To be honest with you, they left it up for grabs as well against Vandy last weekend as well. There was a point in that third quarter where Vandy was knocking on the door to make it a 1-score game after being down 24-0. And so, I think the biggest thing with Leary is, we saw how well he played at NC State. He's got probably more talent around him now at Kentucky. It's just a consistency piece and not turning the ball over. Let's move to.
All right, who we got next?
Yep, number 6, who is your guy right now, Brady Cook. Man, who would have thought this? Brady Cook, who people were coming for his neck, calling for the backup to replace him, and all the guy's done is score touchdowns and not turn the ball over. He's 72% throwing the ball, 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, no picks, and on top of that, we know he can scoot a little bit. He's ran for 3 touchdowns. He's been efficient. He's getting the ball to his playmakers. I've said that like 2 or 3 times today. But man, I know you got a lot to say about Brady Cook, Chris. So what you got?
Well, he's thrown for about 700 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks their last 2 games against Kansas State, which was ranked 15th at the time and a very good team, and Memphis, which is a pretty good team and had a really good defense coming in. So, again, how much do you consider pass? I mean, Brady Cook probably wouldn't have been a top 6 quarterback in the league coming in, but I don't know how you put him much lower than that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think if anyone has risen in the ranks more than anyone else, I think it's Brady Cook this season for sure. And he's got another great opportunity this weekend. Not only that, but I think he's a little bit banged up as well, Chris. And so, we're seeing him play at this level, and he's not even 100% healthy. Man, I gotta give my props to him. Let's move to number 5 is Joe Milton at Tennessee, who might be one of the more talented guys in this league in terms of arm strength and whatnot. But we touched on this earlier, Chris. I think, his little bit disappointing start, especially the way he finished last year, has way more to do with a new offensive coordinator. The best receiver in the country last year, award winner, is gone. Your top 10 tackle of the Chicago Bears is gone. There's some really big pieces that are just different than Hendon Hooker out and Joe Milton in.
Yeah, no. Tennessee's averaging, and a lot of this is him. I don't know what his number is. And Tennessee has played so far. Let me make sure I got this right. Virginia, Austin Peay, Florida, UTSA. Tennessee is averaging, 6.6 yards per passing play. No, that's not a top 4 quarterback in this league with what some of these other guys. Look, people in Knoxville are already calling for his head, Gavin.
Yeah.
He's got a gifted wide receiver room. He's making the same mistakes.
Yeah.
No, he's not better than Brady Cook. He's not better than Graham Mertz so far.
Man, I love this. This is great because when we get done with
this, he's not better than Will Rogers on the whole.
When we get done with this as well, Chris, I want you to give me your top 5 as well, because I want to hear all the reason behind it. Number 4 is Carson Beck. Look, I disagree with this one as well because, look, I think he's got the biggest shoes to fill in college football. Stetson Bennett But like I said, back-to-back MVP of the national championship game. Georgia has had guys left and right get drafted in the NFL. There's unbelievable pressure on him, and a completely different guys and J's and Joe's out there with him playing. He hasn't played great. He's been a game manager at best. He's thrown for 1,200 yards, 6 touchdowns, and a pick. And he's also ran for 2 touchdowns. Look, he's taking care of the ball, which always gives you a chance to win this game. But let's be outstanding. He's not an elite quarterback talent maybe that we thought, he may be for replacing Stetson Bennett.
All right, we got 3 left.
Yep, 3 left, and let's move through these a little bit.
So let's see. We haven't accounted for KJ Jefferson, Daniels, and
Spencer Rattler.
Yeah,
who comes in at number 3. Yahoo's got Spencer at number 3. I would argue he's top 2. I'd probably play him at 2.
Again, my apologies.
You're right. Spencer Rattler is in the 3 spot. He's thrown for 1,300 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 2 picks. He's also ran for 65 and a touchdown. Look, his stats may be the best in the league, and he may be the fun to watch, to be honest with you. But I think it's what you said earlier with the statistics thing is the sacks are killing him. He's not a huge running threat. And, I also believe that, South Carolina maybe isn't as good of a team as other people in this league, and that may be hurting him a little bit as well. Moving to number 2 is KJ Jefferson at Arkansas. I've said this before about KJ. I think that he is maybe the most fun individual to watch in this conference. He always gives Arkansas a chance to win this game. He's thrown for 900 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 picks, ran for $130 and a touchdown as well. He played well against LSU. I also think he's a little bit banged up, to be honest with you. And so, I'm interested to see what that looks like going forward, down the rest of the season. Can he keep his health the whole way? And then finally, number 1 is Jaden Daniels. And I do believe he's earned this spot. I think he's playing on one of the better teams in the conference. He's really efficient. And as I've said before, maybe more than anyone, the team goes as he goes. When he's playing well and he's, linking it up with Malik Neighbors, they're playing awesome. He's thrown for 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and ran for 202 touchdowns as well. The team's 3-1, and I got to give him his props here. But once again, people, let me just say this is Yahoo Sports rankings, not mine. I do not agree with a lot of these as well, and obviously neither does Chris. So, Chris, why don't you go ahead? We got about 8 minutes left in the show. Why don't you go ahead and give us let's just go 5 here. Let's just go 5 and maybe dive into these guys a little bit as well. Your top 5 quarterbacks in the SEC, little power rankings here for your Tuesday morning.
Okay, I'm going to give you a short list and sort through this in my mind because I did not prepare one ahead of time. All right, on the list to pick from, and some of this will be a little bit career value maybe. I think Brady Cook's got to be on there. Spencer Rattler definitely has to be on there. KJ Jefferson has to be on there. Jaden Daniels has to be on there. I think Will Rogers has to be under consideration. I think Jackson Dart has to be under consideration. And I think Connor Wegman / Max Johnson. I don't know what we do with that one right now. So I think it's those 7 guys in my mind are on one level. I think because I don't want to just give somebody too much credit for 4 games so far or too much blame when you can have one bad game. I think I would go probably – I think they got the top 3 right.
I agree.
I would probably go
I would actually switch Rattler and Jefferson, though. I think it's Daniels – Rattler. Statistically, I think he's a more impressive thrower, but I do think that KJ Jefferson at 3, I mean, that could either be 2 or 3. He gives Arkansas a chance to win every single game. I do believe that's the top 3, though. So who are you going to put in that 4 and 5 spot, Chris?
Well, I want to look at something real quick because I think I'm going to go Daniels 1, Jefferson 2, Rattler 3. And again, some of that is history. I'm not willing to go just results on first few games so far. If we're doing that, I might put Rattler 1 because of what he's been up against with his offensive line and lack of a running game. But I think in my mind, those are the top 3. Let's see. I've got Cook, Rogers, Dart, and whoever we're going to pick at A&M. I think
I'm surprised you're not throwing your boy Cook in there, man.
No, I said Cook.
Okay,
I think I would go If it's based on this year, you can't put Cook any lower than 4. I don't want to give too much credit there yet.
Yeah.
I think I would go. I think I'd go Rodgers 4, just because we've seen what he can do before.
Yeah.
We saw what they did when they let him loose last week. Dart 5, but I could flip those.
Yeah. I believe those interchangeable as well.
Maybe Wegman 6 and Cook 7 again. If it's just this year, you got to put Cook higher. But I mean, we don't know if Wegman's the quarterback this week. We don't know if Wegman's the quarterback going forward. So that's where I get confused.
Yeah, that's true. And look, I think of all this stuff, as you said, we have 4 weeks of substance to talk about, and a lot of those have been those patented cupcake games that you talk about, Chris. But we're going to learn a lot. We're going to learn a lot about these teams in this interconference play. As I said in previous shows, it's going to be an absolute war this year because the margin for error is slim. Used to be, you could lose an SEC game during the regular season and still find yourself at a chance to play in the college football playoff at the end of the year. I'm not sure that's the case this year, to be honest with you. I'm just not. I'm interested to see how this changes as well when the playoff expands in future years. Can teams lose a game? Can they lose 2? Can they lose a game in the regular season and lose the SEC championship in Atlanta and still find themselves a way to squeak into the playoff when it does expand to multiple teams moving through the rest of the year? How does that affect quarterback play, as you and I are talking about, Chris? I think it's obvious that we don't have nearly the elite quarterback, level of play and the high standard that we've seen in this conference in previous years. This year, I just don't think that that's there. I think Jaden Daniels, if you look if we're saying that he is right now the best quarterback in this conference, you look at previous years, it's possible that he's at 3, maybe 4. And so, there's some other guys in this league who in previous years who have been better than the guys we have now. But I mean, that's why defense is just as important this year. You harped on that yesterday, Chris. It seems like defense has ramped up a lot. Maybe we're going away from these high-powered offenses, kind of catch me if you can mentality. And so interested to see how those trends and come and goes as college football happen, because they're very, very real.
All right, Gavin, we promised we would touch on Auburn, Georgia. I want to do that before we go. We may go just a little bit over the hour mark, although not more than that, because I've got to get out of here in a minute. But before we do that, our channel is also sponsored by my friend Andy Ludicky and MyPerfectFranchise.net. What they do, they spend time sitting down with you, getting your inventory of skills, finding out what you want out of life, what you want out of family life, and then matching you to their franchises they work with opportunities. They're not in this to place you with one company over another because it's more money. They're not charging you for that consultation on the front end. They have helped out a ton of people. So go visit myperfectfranchise.net. Tell Andy Ludicky we said hello, and I think you'll be very happy that you did. Okay. Wanted to bring up Auburn, Georgia today, Gavin, because the line in this one has been moving in Auburn's favor. I think it was 16.5 to start. It is now 14.5. Now, look, we went over Auburn's troubles. I think you're going to have a hard time beating Georgia under any circumstance. I think you're going to have a really hard time if you can't throw the ball, because Georgia is going to tee off on the run, and that's probably not going to go well for you. You're going to have to score some points to beat this team.
Absolutely.
Do you have an explanation for why this line has moved in Auburn's favor?
I don't know if I have an explanation more so than just, and I mean this with all sincerity. I don't care if it's LSU at night, if it's Vanderbilt, if it's Kentucky. Going on the road in this conference it's way tougher than playing at home. It's way tougher than playing at home. And so I think that if there's an explanation, I think just that's it as well. I think that Auburn's also going to be hyped up. I think this is a game that if they win, kind of like last week, if they won that A&M game last week, we're going to say they're years ahead. If Auburn can find a way, I do not think that they will. Let me just say that first. But if they can find a way somehow to win this game and shock the world and upset, I mean, what an absolute thrust in the forward direction this program goes under Hugh Freeze. But the keys to the game for Auburn are what you said, man. They got to find a way to score points. They got to find a way to move the ball, especially through the air. When we saw the Georgia-South Carolina game with Spencer Rattler, who's one of the more talented passers in this country, in this conference, as we just talked about, Chris, when they were able to do that, they were able to score and really keep it a close game. They had a lead at halftime. South Carolina had a lead at halftime over Georgia because they were able to dice them up through the air. If they can find a way to do that, and Hugh Freeze and his staff can find loopholes in this Georgia defense to expose them a bit, they're going to give themselves a chance to win this game. I also think on the other side, this is a real chance for Georgia to establish themselves at the high level of play that they haven't hit this year. Let's just be honest. They haven't. They have not played at the level they've played in previous years. The defense is not nearly as fast and physical as they've been previously. The offense doesn't have the star power that it's had. This is a great opportunity. Your first not first conference, but your first conference road game at Auburn. I believe. What time is that kick, Chris? What time is that kickoff?
2:30.
2:30 game. So you got
CBS
2:30 game, middle of the day. You're going to have CBS game. You're going to have people watching. What an opportunity for them to really kind of step up and have their coming out party to tell everybody that Georgia's still the same Georgia that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I think Georgia is got a chance to run the ball in this game. Auburn's had trouble against the run the last couple of years. Georgia's not really gotten off track the way we thought the rushing game would. The line's not been consistent. Boy, we've said that about everybody. But here's the problem for Auburn. Georgia's giving up 4.5 yards of passing play. We've talked about Auburn's difficulties against a schedule that hasn't been great. But now here's the interesting thing. Auburn has had injuries to at least 4 key defensive backs. Keontae Scott's out right now with surgery. He isn't playing. To me, this is kind of a Carson Beck game, a little bit of a litmus test, because I think Georgia can win without him playing like a superstar.
Yep.
But he's going to be tested by Auburn, which is really managed to keep its secondary together despite all those injuries. And it's interesting that this line has moved down towards Auburn.
I think it's really interesting. And as I said, there's a reason these casinos and sportsbooks exist, is because they win more than they lose. They probably know something we don't. But still, man, for Georgia, I think this is a great for Auburn. It's a great opportunity because it can put your program ahead of schedule a year or two. For Georgia, it's a great opportunity because it's going to allow you to kind of come out and let's be honest, they're the number 1 team in the country, back-to-back national champions. There's a reason they're still ranked number 1. But like I'm saying, they have not played at that level that they've matched in previous years. And what an opportunity to do that on the road. CBS, 2:30 kick. And what an opportunity for Carson Beck, man. I'm sure he's hearing the disrespect a little bit. He's got shoes to fill and Stetson Bennett. And so huge opportunity for Georgia to play the way they want to this weekend.
All right, both of us have to bounce here. I do apologize for my internet issues. I'm going to reset that, which usually works, and I should have done that before the show, but I didn't. My apologies, and I'm sorry we didn't spend more time on Auburn, Georgia. Meant to do that. We got really caught up in that quarterback discussion, which
you didn't like some of those, Chris. You didn't like some.
No,
of those. I've never seen you dispute that. I like that. That was fun. That was fun.
I mean, there was some low-hanging fruit there.
Oh, no doubt.
So anyway, all right, we'll be back at it tomorrow. We'll talk a little Missouri on Thursday, and we'll talk SEC with Trey Wallace on Friday. Again, we do this live every day, 11 to noon, every weekday. So thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss these. For Gavin Schoenwald, I'm Chris Lee. We're the SEC Daily. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.